So in our gospel reading today, Jesus is talking about, or the Bible is talking about where Jesus ran into a woman in this region called Tyre and Sidon. This would have been north of Jerusalem in a place called Syrophoenicia. So that's a neat place because it's pretty far away actually from where Jesus is usually doing what he's doing, from Jerusalem. And in that place, it said there were Greeks there. It was just a whole bunch of Gentiles. What's a Gentile? I'm glad you asked. A Gentile are those who are just ugly, evil, vile, disgusting people. They are those who aren't Jews. They are forsaken by God. They order their lives around whatever they want, but not God. And so that you know, that definition of Gentile includes us. We are Gentiles. Pretty much, if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. And this woman was absolutely that. This is a woman that God doesn't love, and she comes up to Jesus, who is God, and they engage in this debate. And so, you know, one of the things we can think of or we can understand when we read this Bible verse is that Jesus lost a debate. I'm going to tell you that's not the case. I don't think that this woman convinced Jesus all of a sudden that he should love people, right? As if all of a sudden Jesus was like, oh, all means all. I was so confused there for a second. Okay. No, that's not at all what's going on here. In fact, just a few verses before, when he was in Jerusalem, Jesus was talking to these Pharisees, and he was attacking the Pharisees, and he was telling them, hey, you keep making these rules. You Pharisees keep making all these laws, and your laws are really just to separate some people from other people, to make some people within the love of God and some people outside of the love of God. And Jesus is attacking these Pharisees, saying, stop doing that. All means all. So I'm not convinced that this woman came up to Jesus and all of a sudden, you know, she won the Pepsi challenge and he switched or something like that. I think rather that Jesus, he comes up to her and they're having this conversation, and Jesus needs to hear her say that she's a dog. This is what she says in verse 28. She says, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." So what's she saying? She's saying, look, I understand that the Jews, they get the meat and the bread and all the whatevers, but even underneath the table are the dogs, and they get crumbs. She's saying, I'm a dog. I need the crumbs. I'll even take the crumbs. So she's calling herself a dog. Why? Why would Jesus need to hear her call herself a dog? Okay, well, maybe Jesus is having a bad day. He's 100% human. We forget that. Jesus is 100% human. He's 100% God, but he's also 100% human. And if you remember in the story, he left Jerusalem. He went way far north, out of his way, into a place to hide, to get away from people. And he's sitting there, and somebody just handed him a pina colada, and here comes this woman. So maybe Jesus is mad. Maybe he's like, look, I don't want to have anything to do with you. All right, well, maybe. I don't think so, though. I don't think that Jesus was just lazy or on a power trip. I don't think all of a sudden he got this revelation that, oh yeah, all means all. I think there's something else going on here, which is that the woman called herself a dog because the woman needed to hear it. She needed to know that she was a dog. She needed to tell herself. Which sounds really odd, but here, let's just take a second and talk about who are the Phoenicians, this Syro-Phoenician woman, right? Well, what is a Phoenician anyway? So Phoenicians were these groups of people who went all around the Mediterranean. They went from North Africa and Carthage, all the way across North Africa, all the way up through Jerusalem, all the way through Greece and Italy, and all the way out to Spain. These people were traders. They were rich. They were powerful. They connected cultures with other cultures. In fact, they made so much money, they had to figure out a way how to write down what people owed them. And they came up with a letter system called phonetics. Maybe you've heard of phonetics, right? It comes from the Phoenicians. These are a powerful people. And what happens when you have money and power? You command people. You ask and it's given. You tell and it's given. When somebody says something from Phoenicia, somebody else says, well, how high should I jump? What's more is, as a Phoenician, she would have had a whole slew of gods. And she would have been used to telling those gods what to do. The relations between a Phoenician and their gods would have been one of commanding and actually a little hate, little animosity there. Because the gods wouldn't have wanted to do what the people wanted to do, but then they would have made them do it. In fact, if you read the Old Testament, you'll see over and over there's these commands from the Lord God above all gods saying, don't do something. Don't pass your children through the flame. Because the Phoenicians worshiped this god Baal. And they were used to, the Phoenicians and anybody else who worshiped Baal, whenever there wasn't enough rain to make the crops grow, they would take one of their children and sacrifice them in fire. What? Yeah, it's wild. And the Old Testament is full of the Lord God above all gods saying to his people, don't do this. That's not how I work. You can't conform your ways and then all of a sudden, or you can't make a recipe and then have me conform to your ways. That's not how I work. You can't just do these things and then I will be doing them for you. God, the Lord above all gods, says, I'm not a genie. I'm not a dog that you should click your fingers and then I command. But this Phoenician woman, that's how she would have acted. She would have expected that she could have just commanded a god to do what she wanted and it should have been done. So when she comes up to Jesus, she's a powerful woman who's used to getting her way. And whenever she interacts with a being that would be more powerful than her, she still is used to commanding that being. Which means when Jesus and her interaction begin, they're on the wrong page. Jesus is somewhere around here, she's somewhere up here. Now, if Jesus, when she comes into this conversation, had given her what she wanted, then what would have happened? She would have said, oh, good, I got what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted my daughter to be healed. My daughter is healed. I deserve the Mother of the Year award. Because why? Because she did exactly what mothers should do, which is go and seek out what you have to make your children well. If you're a parent, if you know what it is to have a child sick, then you know how impotent that feels, that you can't do anything to heal your child. And you know that you would do almost anything to heal your child. And so if she went and talked to this Jewish Jesus guy, and he gave her what she wanted, then she would have walked out of there expecting it to have happened. It happened, and nothing would have changed. Her life wouldn't have been any different. It would have been just another thing in the world that she lived in. Oh, you were sick. Remember when you were sick? But I found this Jewy guy, and he helped you out. But that's not the story Jesus wants to tell. In fact, at the end of our Bible story, and all through the book of Mark, it says, and Jesus told them not to tell anybody. Of course they told people. Jesus, come on, don't be silly. Of course everybody in the world told what happened. Are you kidding me? You just brought this person back to life. You made this person who was blind see. This girl is healed. They told everybody. But the reason Jesus doesn't want anybody to know is because that's not the point. Jesus didn't come to heal people. He came to change us. And this woman who comes in and wants Jesus to heal her daughter, had Jesus just healed her daughter, she wouldn't have been changed. Jesus' point is to change people, which means he would have been working against his own purpose. Instead, he says, no, it's not for you. And she does exactly what any mother in that situation would have done. She begs. She pleads. She says, please, 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 look, I'm a dog, just whatever it takes, just heal my daughter. And there, in that headspace, where she finally breaks down how powerful she thinks she is, what she thinks she can do in this world, whatever she can command in this world, in that place where she finally says, I've got nothing, you have everything, Jesus, in that place where she is finally a servant, then she sees God. And God says, go. Your daughter has been made well. Because Jesus wasn't interested in healing someone. He was interested in changing someone. He wasn't interested in her getting her way, her selfish motives, whatever those happen to have been. See, because Jesus is the Lord of life. He's the King of kings. He's not the Burger King. The Burger King means you can have it your way. Jesus is not interested in you getting it your way. He wants it His way. And it can only and will always only ever be that way. And finally, when the woman's agenda got out of the way and all she wanted was Jesus' way, He gave her what she was looking for. Now, what do you think the result of that would be? When she finally got her ego out of the way, her national pride out of the way, her wealth out of the way, and she said, "You are the only thing in my life that matters because you're the only one in this world that can bring life." And then she was given it. What do you think the end result of that's going to be? A changed life. That woman can never look at her daughter again in any other way other than a miracle. So what's going on in your world? Where have you seen God? Where have you been blessed by God? Where has God stepped into your life and turned the course of events? And how has that changed you? Have you seen God? Do you know that He works in your life? He does. Do you understand that God is God? That we can't command God. You can't tell God. It's not a bargain with God. You can't say, "God, I will do whatever you want for me, but first you need to do these things over here. If, God, you give me these things, if, God, you do this for me, when you accomplish these things for me, God, then I will do that over there for you." Because that's exactly what the Syrophoenician woman did when she walked into that room. She wanted God to do for her what she wanted, so that she can leave that room and go her own way. God is not interested in our way. He wants His way. That's His purpose, to show us the only way. So he ends up blessing this woman. He gets up, he leaves, he comes up to a deaf, mute guy, he goes, boom, and heals him like that. Because the purpose wasn't the healing, it was the changed life. It doesn't have to be a wrestling match with God. It can be. It will be. Absolutely. If you want it to be, it will be. The more you decide yours is the right way, the more God will wrestle with you. In fact, in the Old Testament, we have a wrestling match. Literally a wrestling match where they wrestled all night long. And at the end, it says that this guy was wrestling with this other guy, hit him in the hip so hard, knocked the hip out of the socket. The guy falls to the ground. The guy who was standing up goes, "Good. Ha, I win. Now, I'm going to change your name. I'm going to change it to Israel," which is Hebrew for the one who wrestles with God. Because Israel kept trying to go his own way, and for all of history have continued to try to go their own way. Or maybe you know where you're going. And the blessings are just as easy as done. Because God isn't interested in your way. He wants your life. And when you're ready to be used by God, He will use you. And when you see His miracles in your life, hopefully you will see His hand. And when you see those miracles, it will be because you stop pretending that your own actions are miraculous.